don't know if you remember seeing this in some of our demo videos. I printed this off to show people what wallpaper is about, and this was done a very long time ago, and we wanted to step it up a notch, and we wanted to make a much bigger version of this. So today we're going to be moving over to our frosting. We're going to use this for our windows, and we're going to use two different types of wallpaper. We've got self-adhesive and our normal gewone wallpaper, which you have to use wallpaper glue. So let's go have a look. When it comes to printing, we're going to be using the Eco and UV printer today, and there are going to be differences between the two, but they're there for a reason. On both these printers, I'll be using my 8-pass simply because I want the most amount of color to be dropped onto my material. When we're looking at our design, you have to remember that you can't just throw on a wallpaper, straight from the roll. When you're doing your design, you have to make sure that you section off your print into panels that best suit you. And when I say best suit you, got to remember when you're holding up the wallpaper against the wall, you got to make sure that if it's too wide, you can't actually hold it up steady and you end up making mistakes. So you usually range between the width of anywhere between 800 and just under a meter, and that's a good width to hold up each panel while you're applying to the wall. Keep in mind that if you are going to be cutting and sectioning off your design, you need to make sure that you give yourself a 20mm gap or bleed on left or right to make sure that when you overlap your wallpaper, you actually have room to play with. Because if you go a little bit skew, it's okay as long as you've got that 20mm bleed, then you'll be fine. When you start applying your first panel, you always want to start in the middle. Reason being is if you start on the left hand side and you make your way over to the right hand side, if you put the left hand side skew, by the time you've ended up with your right hand side all the way at the end of your wall, it's going to be completely out and there's no way of fixing it. So if you start in the middle, you have the opportunity to go left or right while being able to fix it over that length, which is a much shorter distance than from all the way from the left to the right. So just please keep that in mind, that the middle, whenever you're applying not just wallpaper, any sort of signage that you're overlapping, start with the middle. When we're applying, you can use ABS or any other plastic, it is completely up to you. But when you're doing the wallpaper glue, you must make sure that you move over to plastic, because the felt squeegee, it just becomes very messy and you end up ruining your squeegee. The UV printer works great for the frosting simply because it has a better pigment and will be able to show more color. The eco-solvent does show color on the frosting, but just does not have a solid pigment like the UV, but we're going to do one in both just to show you the difference. For the wallpaper, you must remember not to use UV when it comes to wallpaper, and the reason is if you're doing UV on wallpaper, the ink actually only stays on the top surface, whereas Eco then penetrates into the actual material, so when you're applying it to any wall or the surface you're using, you don't scratch off the ink. And from our experience, the UV ink does not penetrate the material, so therefore when you are applying your wallpaper to the wall, it will always scratch off the ink. So you're best using eco-solvent for wallpaper. So because we're going to be using the Eco for all of our wallpaper, we will be using two different wallpapers. Your gewone normal wallpaper, where you use wallpaper glue to apply it to the wall. Then you have your self-adhesive wallpaper, which comes already pre-applied with adhesion. All you got to do is peel off the backing. And these two have very different purposes behind them. Either you are doing DIY and you need to do it yourself in a hurry, or you're a professional and you know what you're doing, and doing the normal gewone wallpaper with wallpaper glue is definitely the better way to go. So guys, I mentioned that we're going to go much bigger, and we stepped it up a notch and we went for a much bigger Rick and Morty print. But let's start with the nitty-gritties. This wallpaper here is the self-adhesive wallpaper, and that meaning it already comes with the glue applied to the back like normal vinyl. So sticking it onto any surface that is smooth and flat, it makes it so much easier. And not to mention the fact that we love Rick and Morty so much because it has such a wide color range. And you can see almost all of the colors popping in this particular print alone. And from that, I needed to also cover the window as well. And I went for an eco-solvent print on this as well with frosting. And it doesn't give you the exact same color range as you want from the wallpaper itself, but it's still given a really good representation of this wall itself, and I think it's come out really nicely. But on the other side, we have our normal gewone wallpaper like I mentioned before. It has the same texture. All we did in this one is we used wallpaper glue to apply it to our wall, and we can still see our eco-solvent colors popping here, and it's looking really, really nice. But now I have a little bit of a twist. I added a UV print onto frosting here instead of eco-solvent. Now that you can see gives you a better color range than what you had on your eco-solvent. And that's because the UV ink is a lot more solid in terms of pigment when it's laying down its ink. And for that we get a much better print. And it certainly does match it quite nicely. And with this being wallpaper, that means you can also put it on doors. And we've managed to put it up on this door here, and it matches everything that we've got here, which is exactly what I wanted. Now, how's that for stepping up a notch?